Omarosa, let me tell you something. I was on an airplane election night, and I was flying from LA to New York, and as the numbers started coming out, I became more and more in need of libation. I'm devastated.
Dr. Sean, were you drunk on election night? That's what I'm hearing.
No comment. No comment. So let me ask this though: do you consider yourself a Republican, a Democrat, Independent?
I am the most sought after voter of any campaign. I am an independent swing voter. You know who campaigns spend the most money on? Independent voters. They are the most coveted, sought after. I have served in the Democratic Party. I was born into the Democratic Party. I worked in a Republican White House. I have seen both sides from a perspective that most people would never see. And the one thing that I know is that you have to vote your interest, that you have to fight for the things that are important to you.
That's so true.
Because the parties are not fighting for you. You have to fight for what's important for you and your family.
That's rich.
Regardless.
Yeah, that's rich. Yeah. That's rich. So let me ask you this, because you know, I don't get to ask anybody else these kind of questions because they don't know the answer.
Before you ask me another question, I got to shout out my prayer partners. They're up there.
Yeah, sure. Shout them out.
Hey, Dee Dee. Hey, Kiana. Hey, Kim.
Pray for me. Pray for America.
And Dee Dee Kelly did my face. I didn't wake up like this. God bless Dee Dee Kelly. My face is her canvas.
So let me ask you this. You ready? Why is Donald Trump so obsessed with Barack Obama?
Oh. Well, I pinpointed it back in Unhinged to the night that we were at the Correspondents' Dinner. And I was sitting about 6 tables from Donald. And Barack Obama, President Obama, with his incredible wit, delivered one of the greatest roasts of all time.
Yeah, I saw it. It was great.
And I remember looking over. You ever try to look at your friend like, ooh, ooh? He was not taking it well, y'all. I mean, he was not taking it well. He had turned beet red and he was mad. And I ran into him after and I said, hey, and he's like, I'm out of here. And he was just mad and he was ticked off and he snatched Melania and he huffed out. And I believe that that evening that Donald Trump decided not only would he run for president, that if he became president, he would dismantle every single thing that Barack Obama built in his presidency.
In real life, he's that petty.
He put the P in petty, honey.
You know what's interesting, because another thing I can't figure out, maybe you can give us some insight into it, is why was he so hell-bent on this birther thing? Even when he knew it was ridiculous.
Yeah. I think that he had nothing else to grasp. I mean, President Obama, his intellect, his poise, his training, there's an elegance about him.
Yeah.
Donald Trump has none of those things. Like none, zero. And so the thing that he tried to attack was the core of who President Obama was.
Yeah.
He couldn't attack his intellect, his education, his pedigree, none of that. So he went after his lineage. Do you know how deep that is? There is something so incredibly deep. I'm surprised he didn't ask for a DNA test, a blood sample, and a 23andMe test. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. I've not thought about it in those terms.
Yeah.
How ridiculously offensive and rude it is to go after somebody's lineage.
Oh.
And to the degree that you know it's not just a political ploy,
no,
that you are questioning on some level the man's humanity.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And you worked for this man.
I did. But I can also list a whole long list of other people who I worked in this industry, in the academy, in business, who are repulsive individuals. As women, we tend to work for men who are awful.
That's fair.
And guess what? We have to tough up and press through. And if everybody in this audience started quitting because their bosses were jerks or idiots, we'd all be unemployed. Am I right about it?
I can't argue with that. But I'm interested in knowing on some level.
By the way, are you a perfect boss? I'm just
Absolutely.
asking.
Absolutely. Unequivocally. The level of my perfection as a boss exceeds that of Barack Obama and everybody.
There's a new series on Fox Soul called Perfect Boss.
Perfect
Stay
Boss.
tuned.
You can apply online. Let's talk about when you were ready to leave the White House.
Yeah.
And just sort of how that happened, because I think what was going on in your final days in terms of in the administration, in the building, what was the mood like? Because I think people, they know what happened, right? They know that you left. There's discord on whether or not John Kelly fired you or you resigned, right?
And then there's the tapes. Dr. Sean.
Omarosa.
There's their side and my side, and then there's the tapes.
If you don't think we talk about the tapes, we go. Matter of fact, if you brought a tape with you, and if you want to reveal anything.
Hold on, hey Kiana. No, I'm kidding.
If you want to bring a tape on this show, I would be so happy.
I want to just take you back to Charlottesville, which is when I definitively decided that I could no longer work.
I was wondering that.
In that administration. And I wanted to quit on that day in protest. And like many of us, quitting wasn't an option because there was no one else that looked like me to continue the work. If my deputy was an African-American woman who had been educated at 3 historically black colleges and who had worked in politics for 20 years, I would have left on that day. But my deputy was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl named Lexi who had no idea what the fight for justice, equality, and better way of life for black people was about. And so I had to think before I leaped. And so I had to think of who would continue the work. And as angry as I was, my husband, John Allen Newman, Pastor John Allen Newman, said, you can't react, you have to respond to this. And you're the only voice from the inside out. So you can't just throw up your hands and quit. And so before we get to the John Kelly thing, the mistake I made is that I was very vocal that I was ready to leave, and that I was not pleased, and that I was upset, and so when you make white people uncomfortable, then they already start plotting your exit. And so it was in August that I believed that John Kelly was like, oh, how dare she speak out about Donald Trump, and there was that infamous interview that I criticized his handling of Charlottesville. So my exit started in August, and it didn't go down until we were in the Situation Room. Me, John Kelly, and my ability to record everything that the man said. But I think it was important for people to hear, not just what was said, but how it was said, and how John Kelly talked to me, and the threats that he said. We don't want anything to happen to you or your reputation. Clear threats. But I mentioned at the beginning of this program, I'm from the projects. Like I ain't scared of the boogeyman, I ain't scared of you. Like you gotta come a little harder than, something's gonna happen to you.
Did he say that?
Did you not hear my, yes, there were multiple threats that he made in that exit. And so, in order to get rid of the only African-American senior staffer, you have to lock her up in the Situation Room with men with guns on the outside of the door, and not allow me to leave in a way that everyone else exited, with cake in the conference room and a goodbye email to the staff. That's the way John Kelly decided to handle my exit.
With you locked in the Situation Room?
In the Situation Room.
In the immortal words of my mama, what the hell? Are you serious?
Yes. You never understand how people fear black people. And there were 5 men in total in that room. and I'm picturing it as I'm sharing it with you, Dr. Sean, but at no point did I ever have fear. Do you understand? Like, if you hear our exchange, I'm going, you have never allowed me to talk to you. When I requested, time to sit down with you, you ignored me.
Talking about Kelly.
Yes. Yeah. You could hear how boldly I confront him on his hypocrisy. And I think that they needed to do that so that then, while I was locked in the Situation Room, they were releasing a story about my exit publicly while I was locked in that room and not allowed to leave.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
It makes me want to ask you what may seem to be a glib question, but I take it to be particularly substantive, and that is, have you ever heard Donald Trump or anyone in the administration say anything that you thought was racist?
Yes. I told you I sat next to Stephen Miller every day at senior staff. I don't know if you saw recent articles that I guess they got a hold of his emails, and it confirmed what we all suspected, that not only is he a racist, but he believes in white supremacy.
What did
and
you
he's a
hear?
White nationalist. Let me tell you how I reacted to what I heard. So the first time that I had a moment, one of the sister moments where you're like, they wanted to do an education event, and I believe that it was Katie Walsh, who was ranked previous deputy, said, can we get some black kids to stand behind them? And I said, so you want black window dressing? You want to utilize African-American children as props in this press conference? Is that what I'm hearing? And everybody around the room went, no, that's not what she was saying. Is it racist? Is it not? I mean, some people could argue that wasn't racist. They wanted black children. No, she knew exactly what she was saying and what she wanted to do. When we dealt with Puerto Rico, the hurricane in Puerto Rico, and I couldn't understand why they weren't releasing the emergency funds to Puerto Rico. And now that we understand how they dealt with Ukraine and how they held up those funds, we understand that it was because of political positioning on behalf of Mick Mulvaney and Donald Trump, and because the recipients of said funds were black and brown people, period.
I think there's no other way to explain that.
And then don't even get me started on the Muslim ban, the travel ban.
But you wrote in your book that you've heard him use the N-word.
I did.
Yeah.
And one of the lawsuits, I'm currently engaged in 2 lawsuits with Donald Trump. One, he's utilizing Bill Barr, Attorney General Bill Barr, and the Justice Department is suing me. It's called, the case is called United States versus Omarosa Manigault Newman, if you want to read all about it. And the second case is through the campaign, Donald J. Trump campaign versus Omarosa Manigault Newman. And the only reason people sue and spend millions of dollars on legal fees is not to shut down a lie, it's to shut down the truth. And so, millions of dollars to fight me. And so that's one of the things that they bring up, and they're trying to silence me from being able to talk about. They talk about an NDA that I signed where I agreed never to say anything disparaging about Donald Trump, including disclosing the fact that that Donald Trump used the N-word. But we'll see if I prevail.
I think you'll be all right.
Thanks, Dr. Sean.
But let's go back to the tapes.
Yes, let's talk about the tapes.
Because I'm hoping that one of your prayer partners comes down here. Matter of fact, I'm praying. Dear baby Jesus, please send one of the prayer partners.
Y'all cute, look at y'all.
You said, and I think maybe I'm wrong, but you said you have 200 tapes?
I never gave the exact numbers, but if you can think about how often Donald Trump says something stupid and multiply that by 5, then you're probably in the right ballpark.
It's amazing because, you wrote this book and you told a story about a president and a man who is, as you put it, unhinged. And I'm wondering why people who have left the White House, other than you, of course, have not been so bold and so honest about what's going on.
Well, I mean, you see the consequences. I mean, Donald Trump went on a Twitter rant and called me everything but a child of God. I mean, I think he called me a dog and a lowlife and all these other names that he resorted to, which if he tweets his 60, 70 million followers, you know what that does to your security and your safety. And in addition to that, I already mentioned the lawsuits and spending millions and millions of dollars to silence me. And I have to, of course, get attorneys to defend myself. I mean, there are consequences to telling the truth, Dr. Sean. And you pay a dear price if you go against this president because he wants revenge. And he will stop at nothing to try to just crush you and to silence you. And so you have to have this ability to kind of face that. And in my case, you know, if you see me in a fight with a bear, Dr. Sean.
Pray for the bear. Can I say something to you from the heart?
Yeah.
Because, you know, I got about 3 or 4 minutes left, and there's one other thing I want to do.
The whole entire show? Our time is up?
Yeah, but listen, I've, you know, we've been around each other in other venues in church and with the National Action Network and Reverend Sharpton. And when you went to work for Donald Trump, I was like, what the hell is Omarosa doing? And I side-eyed you. I was just like, Let me tell you when you had me. Now, if I talk about my sister, that's my business. I can talk about my sister and fight with my sister and say, now what the hell are you doing? But if you talk about my sister, that's when we got a problem. And when the entire white Republican establishment, all of Trumpism turned on you, then for me, I can't speak for Black America, I can't speak for, you know, but for me personally, I said to myself, now look, we may not always agree, but we got to defend our sister. We cannot let people dismantle her because right, wrong, or indifferent, she's a Black woman and she belongs to us. She's ours. So, all right, I gotta go.
Wait, before you go, you mentioned that this was on social media, so do you mind if I ask people to go to @Omarosa, which is my Twitter handle, @Omarosa is my Instagram, @Omarosa is my Facebook, and Snap, and LinkedIn. @Omarosa, Omarosa.
All right.
Thank you.
Here's the lightning round. All right.
And yet there's more.
Yeah, there's always more with me. Here's a lightning round. So one word answer to these questions, all right?
Okay.
Is Donald Trump going to get reelected?
Possibly.
What's your biggest regret?
Not spending enough time with my family.
Wait.
Is that more than one word?
That's fine.
Family.
When was the last time you cried?
Earlier today.
What's the biggest misconception about you?
That I'm not nice.
What's the one thing you know for sure?
That God loves me and He loves you too.
I'm gonna give you a list of names. Give me one-word responses, all right? And then we're done. Ready? Al Sharpton.
Strong.
Bill Clinton.
Lost potential.
Donald Trump.
Insane.
Jared Kushner.
Underwhelming.
Ivanka Trump.
White House Barbie.
Fox News.
Fake news.
Omarosa Manigault Newman.
Blessed.
I know that's right. Thank you.